Crowley, somewhere west of Amersham, hurtled through the night, snatched a tape at random and tried to wrestle it out of its brittle plastic box while staying on the road. The glare of the headlight proclaimed it to be Vivaldi's Four Seasons. Soothing music, that's what he needed. He rammed it into the Blaupunkt. Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Why now? Why me? He muttered as the familiar strains of Queen washed over him. And suddenly, Freddie Mercury was speaking to him. Because you've earned it, Crowley. Crowley blessed under his breath. Using electronics as a means of communication had been his idea, and Below had, for once, taken it up, and, as usual, got it dead wrong. You'd hoped they could be persuaded to subscribe to Cellnet, but instead they just cut into whatever he happened to be that he was listening to at the time and twisted it. Crowley gulped. Thank you very much, Lord, he said. We have great faith in you, Crowley. Thank you, Lord. This is important, Crowley. I know. This is the big one, Crowley. Leave it to me, Lord. This is what we are doing, Crowley, and if it goes wrong, then those involved will suffer greatly. Even you, Crowley. Especially you. Understood, Lord. Here are your instructions, Crowley. And suddenly, he knew. He hated that. They could have just as easily have told him. They didn't have to drop chilly knowledge straight into his brain. He had to drive to a certain hospital. I'll be there in 5 minutes, Lord, no problem. Good. I see a little silhouette of a man. Scaramouche, will you do the fandango? Crowley thumped the wheel. Everything had been going so well. He'd really had it under his thumb these past few centuries. That's how it goes. You think you're on top of the world, and then suddenly they spring Armageddon on you. The Great War. The last battle. Heaven versus hell. 3 rounds, 1 fall, no submission. And that'd be that. No more world. That's what the end of the world meant. No more world. Just endless heaven, or, depending who won, endless hell. Crowley didn't know which was worse. Well, hell was worse, of course, by definition, but Crowley remembered what heaven was like. And it had quite a few things in common with hell. You couldn't get a decent drink in either of them for a start, and the boredom you got in heaven was almost as bad as the excitement you got in hell. But there was no getting out of it. You couldn't be a demon and have free will. I will not let you go, let him go. Well, at least it wouldn't be this year. He'd have time to do things. Unload long-term stocks for a start. He wondered what would happen if he just stopped the car here, on this dark and damp and empty road, and took the basket and swung it round and let go, and something dreadful. That's what. He'd been an angel once. He hadn't meant to fall. He just hung around with the wrong people. The Bentley plunged on through the darkness, its fuel gauge pointing to 0. It had pointed to 0 for more than 60 years now. It wasn't all bad being a demon. You didn't have to buy petrol, for one thing. The only time Crowley had bought petrol was once, in 1967, to get the free James Bond bullet hole in the windscreen transfers, which he rather fancied at the time. On the back seat, the thing in the basket began to cry. The air raid siren wail of the newly born. High, wordless, and old. It was quite a nice hospital, thought Mr. Young. It would have been quiet, too, if it wasn't for the nuns. He quite liked nuns. Not that he was a, left-footer or anything like that. No, when it came to avoiding going to church, the church he stolidly avoided going to was St. Cecil of All Angels, no-nonsense C of E, and you wouldn't have dreamed of avoiding going to any other. All the others had the wrong smell. Floor polish for the low, somewhat suspicious incense for the high. Deep in the leather armchair of his soul, Mr. Young knew that God got embarrassed at that sort of thing. But he liked seeing nuns around in the same way he liked seeing the Salvation Army. It made you feel that it was all right, that people somewhere were keeping the world on its axis. This was his first experience of the Chattering Order of St. Beryl, however. St. Beryl, Articulus of Krakow, reputed to have been martyred in the middle of the 5th century. According to legend, Beryl was a young woman who was betrothed against her will to a pagan Prince Casimir. On their wedding night, she prayed to the Lord to intercede, vaguely expecting a miraculous beard to appear, and had in fact already laid in a small ivory-handled razor, suitable for ladies, against this very eventuality. Instead, the Lord granted Beryl the miraculous ability to chatter continually about whatever was on her mind, however inconsequential, without pause for breath or food. According to one version of the legend, Beryl was strangled by Prince Casimir 3 weeks after the wedding, with their marriage still unconsummated. She died a virgin and a martyr, chattering to the end. According to another version of the legend, Casimir bought himself a set of earplugs, and she died in bed with him at the age of 62. The Chattering Order of St. Beryl is under vows to emulate St. Beryl at all times, except on Tuesday afternoons for half an hour when the nuns are permitted to shut up and, if they wish, to play table tennis. Deidre had run across them while being involved in one of her causes, possibly the one involving a lot of unpleasant South Americans fighting other unpleasant South Americans and the priests egging them on instead of getting on with proper priestly concerns like organizing the church cleaning rota. The point was, nuns should be quiet. They were the right shape for it, like those pointy things you got in those chambers Mr. Young was vaguely aware your hi-fi got tested in. They shouldn't be, chattering all the time. He filled his pipe with tobacco. Well, they called it tobacco. It wasn't what he thought of as tobacco. It wasn't the tobacco you used to get, and wondered reflectively what would happen if you asked a nun where the gents was. Probably the Pope sent you a sharp note or something. He shifted his position awkwardly and glanced at his watch. One thing, though, at least the nuns had put their foot down about him being present at the birth. Deidre had been all for it. She'd been reading things again. One kid already, and suddenly she's declaring that this confinement was going to be the most joyous sharing experience 2 human beings could have. That's what came of letting her order her own newspapers. Mr. Young distrusted papers whose inner pages had names like Lifestyle or Options. Well, he hadn't got anything against joyous sharing experiences. Joyous sharing experiences were fine by him. The world probably needed more joyous sharing experiences, but he made it abundantly clear that this was one joyous sharing experience Deidre could have by herself. And the nuns had agreed. They saw no reason for the father to be involved in the proceedings. When you thought about it, Mr. Young mused, they probably saw no reason why the father should be involved anywhere. He finished stubbing the so-called tobacco into the pipe and glared at the little sign on the wall of the waiting room that said, for his own comfort, he would not smoke. For his own comfort, he decided, he'd go and stand on the porch. If there was a discreet shrubbery for his own comfort out there, so much better. He wandered down the empty corridor and found a doorway that led out onto the rain-swept courtyard full of righteous dustbins. He shivered and cupped his hands to light his pipe. It happened to them at a certain age, wives, 25 blameless years, and then suddenly they were going off and doing these robotic exercises in pink socks with the feet cut out, and I started blaming you for never having had to work for a living. It was hormones or something. A large black car skidded to a halt by the dustbins. A young man in dark glasses leapt into the drizzle holding what looked like a carry cot and snaked towards the entrance. Mr. Young took a pipe out of his mouth. You've left your lights on, he said helpfully. The man gave him the blank look of someone to whom lights are the least of his worries, and waved a hand vaguely toward the Bentley. The lights went out. That's handy, said Mr. Young. Infrared, is it? He was mildly surprised to see that the man did not appear to be wet, and that the carry cot appeared to be occupied. Has it started yet? Said the man. Mr. Young felt vaguely proud to be instantly so recognizable as a parent. Yes, he said. They made me go out, he added thankfully. Already? Any idea how long we've got? Mr. Young noted, obviously a doctor with views about co-parenting. I think we were, getting on with it, said Mr. Young. What room is she in? Said the man hurriedly. We're in room 3, said Mr. Young. He patted his pockets and found the battered watch which, in accordance to tradition, he had brought with him. Would we care to share a joyous cigar experience? He said. but the man had gone. Mr. Young carefully replaced the packet and looked reflectively at his pipe. Always in a rush, these doctors, working all the hours God sent. There's a trick they do with 1 pea and 3 cups, which is very hard to follow. And something like it, for greater stakes than a handful of loose change, is about to take place. The text will be slowed down to allow the sleight of hand to be followed. Mrs. Deidre Young is giving birth in delivery room 3. She is having a golden-haired male baby, which we'll call baby A. The wife of the American cultural attaché, Mrs. Harriet Dowling, is giving birth in delivery room 4. She is having a golden-haired male baby, we will call baby B. Sister Mary Loquacious has been a devout Satanist since birth. She went to Sabbath school as a child and won black stars for handwriting and liver. When she was told to join the Chattering Order, she went obediently, having a natural talent in that direction, and in any case, knowing that she would be among friends. She would be quite bright if she was ever put in a position to find out, but long ago found that being a scatterbrain, as she'd put it, gave you an easier journey through life. Currently, she is being handed a golden-haired male baby that we will call the Adversary, Destroyer of Kings, Angel of the Bottomless Pit, Great Beast that is called Dragon, Prince of this World, Father of Lies, Spawn of Satan, and Lord of Darkness. Watch them carefully. Round and round they go. Is that him? Said Sister Mary, staring at the baby. Only I'd expected funny eyes, red or green, or teensy-weensy little hoofikins, or a little tail. She turned him around as she spoke. No horns either. The devil's child looked ominously normal. Yes, that's him, said Curly. Fancy me holding the Antichrist, said Sister Mary, and bathing the Antichrist, and counting his little toesy-woesies. She was now addressing the child directly, lost in some world of her own. Curly waved a hand in front of her wimple. Hello? Hello, Sister Mary? Sorry, sir. He is a little sweetheart, though. Does he look like his daddy? I bet he does. Does he look like his daddy Waddykins? No, said Curly firmly. And I should get up to the delivery rooms if I were you. Will he remember me when he grows up, do you think? Said Sister Mary wistfully, sidling down the corridor. Pray that he doesn't, said Curly, and fled. Sister Mary headed through the nighttime hospital with the Adversary, Destroyer of Kings, Angel of the Bottomless Pit, Great Beast that is called Dragon,